Hello, and welcome to Your History in Elections, where today I'm going to be looking back at the presidential election, which is now exactly 1 month away. It is the 3rd of October, and the election will be held on November 3rd. And specifically, I'm going to be looking at these three states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. They're all in the Rust Belt, and they're all extremely important in deciding who will win the presidential election in a month's time. Now, as you can see, I've already filled up the 2016 map. Donald Trump has 260 electoral votes in this scenario. Hillary Clinton ended up with 232. Donald Trump carried all of these by less than 1%, and that gave him 46 electoral 36 electoral votes over the 270 needed to win. However, all Joe Biden needs to do is carry the exact same states and districts that Hillary Clinton carried back in 2016, as well as these three, only needs less than 1% more of the vote to flip back to the Democrats, and Joe Biden and the Democrats retake the White House. So as you can see, these three states, which were decided by only a few thousand, tens of thousands of votes in each of these states, Michigan being the closest, about 45,000 votes, decided the winner in this state. Really, these three states are the ones you should be looking to see how the presidential election will flip. It doesn't matter if Joe Biden gets a landslide victory. These three states are the ones that are going to provide the victory for Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Now, if we want to quickly go into the national polls, I'm going to look at the ones for 2020 at the moment. October 2nd, the most recent polling data, of course, we're looking at a Saturday. Biden is up 7.7, so you could round that up to 8 points nationally. If Biden carries the general ballot by 8 points, the popular vote by 8 points, he will win 99.9% of the time in all scenarios. If Biden does get 7 or 8% or 7 or 8% lead on Trump in the national polls, but as you can see, Biden has about 50% at the moment. Donald Trump's about 43, so there's still about 7% of undecided voters, which is, possibly enough for Donald Trump to overtake him. But we have a month left. Donald Trump is currently in Walter Reed Hospital trying to isolate him after he contracted COVID-19. So it's definitely not the best position for Trump to try and go out and campaign, which he did very effectively back in 2016. And you can see that. If you go back to the 2016 national polls, if we go to, let's scroll down so you can see October 3rd, which is when we are now, Hillary Clinton only led by 4 points nationally. That is half of what Joe Biden is leading by. Half. So any comparison saying that 2016 is very similar to 2020 is just factually very incorrect. I mean, the largest lead Clinton held over Trump is, roughly 6.5 points, from this date, October 3rd. And of course, this is with Trump going everywhere. He's trying as hard as possible. Of course, Trump helped narrow the gap to about, you're looking at about a 4 point difference, which it was on the 3rd of October. On election day, and he won, and he lost the popular vote nationally. However, he did win those three states, so it's very close at the moment. However, of course, the polling data wasn't the best, especially in Wisconsin, where the polling, 538.com in 2016 gave Hillary Clinton an 84% chance, of winning the state. Of course, it was pretty close in the polls. It wasn't like a blowout win for Clinton, but you look at all these polls data, every single one shows a Trump lead, or a Trump loss in the state. But the closest one's only predicting a 1 point win for Clinton. So Wisconsin was definitely the worst state out of the entirety of the United States in prediction-wise in 2016. However, I think it's pretty important to look at the rest as, these are only 4 point leads, and if you want to talk about a margin of error, then you could argue that this did fall just within the margin of error. But the polling data was, pretty poor back in 2016, but it was, a lot closer in 2016. So you look at, if we want to compare with October 3rd, Clinton leads by 5 points. You want to look today in Michigan, Biden leads by almost 7 points. The same in Wisconsin, October 3rd, you see, roughly a 5 point lead, just over a 5 point lead for Clinton. And in Wisconsin, you currently see a 7 point lead for Biden. Pennsylvania is always been notoriously a more tight race. I think this is definitely going to be the hardest for Biden to carry out of all three of them at this point. But then again, October 3rd, you're looking at, again, a roughly 4.5 lead for Clinton. And today, you look at a 6 point lead for Biden. So there is somewhat of a similarity, but this 1.5% lead that Biden, 1.5 to 2 point lead over the 2016 Hillary Clinton lead shows that Joe Biden is, in fact, in a very good position to win these states. And especially with Trump, being prohibited for the next, week and a half at least, that he will not be able to go and campaign rigorously, hold huge campaign stops, donor stops, which largely did carry his campaign for the final few weeks after the last presidential debate. We're not even talking about the upcoming presidential debate between Biden and Trump. That will not happen, or it might be rescheduled. So that difference between the last presidential debate and election day is going to be even shorter than it is usually. And Trump did so well to, arguably win one of, he was such an underdog in that election, and he fought back in those final few weeks to bring the polling data, or the polls, a little closer nationally, but definitely to win in these three Rust Belt states. He will not have that opportunity this year. His COVID-19, or him catching COVID-19, is probably the worst thing that could happen to him. At this time, he's down 8 points nationally. He was only down 4 points nationally in 2016. Is a very, very difficult position for Trump to fight back, because he only needs to win these three states. He wins these three states by the exact same margin that he wins them in 2016, less than 1 point. He wins the election. Joe Biden, on the other hand, he's doing well in North Carolina. There's polls showing him ahead in Iowa, Florida, Arizona. And at that point, he only needs to win Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, and Arizona for it to become a modern day presidential wipeout. But Trump, on the other hand, needs these three states. He needs them. And with the polling data showing that Biden is, roughly 2 points ahead in every single one of the three states that gave Donald Trump his victory back in 2016, above Hillary Clinton's reasonably good polling data, and she only lost these states by less than 1%. I've mentioned it quite a few times, but it's very important. This was not a decisive victory for Trump at all. He lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. 3 million votes, about roughly 2% of the popular vote, and he narrowly won these three states, which gave him the election win. So I think if we're going to look at this 1 month out, Trump cannot campaign, he cannot do donor stops, he cannot travel the country, he's going to be confined in isolation for another good week and a half. Then you're looking at Trump having 20 days to try and bring back an 8 point deficit in national polling figures. And the average for these three states is about 6.5 lead for Biden. And even if we do counter in the margin of error and say it's 4 points the other way, that's still a 3 or 2 point lead for Biden. And with Trump given only 20 days to try and turn that around, at a best case scenario for the president is looking increasingly unlikely and increasingly more likely for Joe Biden to win the presidency in 2020. Because just remember, there's a lot of mail-in votes that have already happened. States like North Carolina, there's tons of votes. Early in-person voting has occurred across the country in many competitive states. So there's a lot of voters who already voted. Trump cannot even change their mind at this point. Of course, these people are most likely going to be voting for Biden no matter what. So overall, Biden is in a very, very good position to win these three states, which are the only three states that he needs to win this election. We're not even talking about the other states. Those would only be, pluses for the Biden campaign, but he only needs these three states plus Hillary Clinton's states, which all accounts, all records show that he's going to win every single one of the states that Hillary Clinton won back in 2016. Only these three states, which they have roughly the same lead polling-wise, along, Nevada, Colorado and New Hampshire, the ones that Hillary Clinton was not entirely sure to win, but she did end up winning them, yet still lost the presidential election. So I think it's very important that Biden is leading, and this is a terrible sign for Trump and a very, very good sign for Joe Biden. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon.